Hey everybody, welcome back to the Live Ultralight podcast powered by Outdoor Vitals. Today I had a tremendous interview with Elina Osborne. For those of you that don't know who Elina is, she is a filmmaker and has a sizable channel on YouTube of over 67,000 subscribers. But I would say that she is most well known for her storytelling abilities. Her videos are very captivating, have great voice in the videos, and are just a treat to watch. So in this episode, we actually talk about filmmaking. We dive into maybe some tips and ways that you might be able to document your own experiences, as well as cover some of her experiences on the PCT, through hiking the PCT, hiking through a trail in New Zealand called the Te Ora Trail, which I probably butchered that name, but sounds like just a fascinating trail. And it's just fun to hear the experiences of everyone internationally, domestic. There's trails all over the world, and I love hearing about all of them. And I feel like every time I do an episode, I just start adding more trails to the list. But Elina was fantastic to interview. She gives lots of really good insights, and I think you guys are going to find that this episode is quite a treat. So with that, we'll go ahead and roll the interview with Elina Osborne. Elina, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast today. You're an accomplished thru hiker, and you're also, in my opinion, a fantastic storyteller. I'm really excited to dive into some of that as well. But my first question to you is, where did you learn how to storytell?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. Thank you. Where did I learn how to storytell? Honestly, when I think back to why I've chosen the kind of path I have in terms of video making, content, hopefully documentary in the future, I guess it's hard to pinpoint. I always picked up the camera as a kid. My dad had this camera. I have four siblings, so there's five of us, but I was the only one who picked up the camera, made my siblings, act in whatever stories I was trying to tell, just boss them around pretty much.
Older sibling, I guess.
Yeah, well, smack bang in the middle, but I had two younger brothers. I have two younger brothers, so I can kind of boss them around, which was great. Yeah, and where did I learn it? I guess there was an innate curiosity and desire, and I guess because of that, I'm the kind of person who just is really motivated by pursuing my own personal passions. So just have continued practicing, I guess.
Yeah. I would be lying if I told you that I hadn't, as a kid, also picked up the old, you pop in the cassette, or I don't even know what it was called anymore, but it wasn't the full sized VHS size cassette in our video recorder, but it was the smaller ones, and we'd always be making just silly little videos around the house, doing all sorts of things. But I don't know. I never thought anything of that, but I've always been interested in storytelling. I think the storytelling is just it digs deep into culture, I would say, but it's also just really goes into communicating and connecting with people and sharing those experiences. Because one thing about it, going and hiking something like the PCT, I don't know how many days you're out there, months and months, right? And trying to wrap that into something you come home and tell your family or your friends, it's a daunting, impossible task, right? So I think that's what's fascinating about what you did is you, unlike most people that go do these hikes, is you really did wrap it into one shorter form video. And that was kind of your start to massive success on YouTube, right?
I don't know about massive success, but yeah, it was. And I think I knew that I wanted to tell some kind of story going out there, something succinct. And it was a very raw, authentic, a very raw, I guess, response to everything I'd experienced. And I guess maybe that's where a lot of where the story struck people. And it was a sense of how do I explain how do I even explain this experience to friends and family? Because, you know, that specific one was so transformative. But you come back from these trips, right? It often happens, and you're like, man, I can't even encapsulate that in a sentence because somebody asks, how was it? And you're like, it was everything. But how do you describe that? And I guess that was my, big motivation for putting that all in one thing, just to express that whole journey.
Well, even if you don't maybe identify as a YouTube star or something like that at this point, I will say that I don't know many channels that have, like, I just was looking at your channel, and you don't have a massive amount of videos, but what you do have is a lot of views per video. And I think that what that really tells me, looking at that, is just that people that find your content stick, right? And so they're seeing that, they're getting really invested in the story, they're coming back for more story later on. And I think one thing that would be interesting for you, because I think this is where you have some expertise or some real unique ability, is I think a lot of people like to film themselves going outdoors and to share these experiences, especially now that everyone has, you know, basically a 4K camera in their pocket, and they're trying to capture. But I think a lot of people don't maybe know exactly how to approach that and how to record something that they can look back on and really enjoy themselves, or potentially share it with other people. So I would be interested to hear your take on what you would tell a listener that, you know, is just, you know, it's an avid backpacker or getting into backpacking, and they're really interested in documenting this, right? Because, like, these are core memories. These are, like, you live your whole year. A lot of us, you know, live our whole year to go out on trail and experience some of these things. And you hate to see it slip away, or you hate to not be able to relive it the way that you want to relive it. So I'd be interested if you have any words of wisdom for listeners that just want to document themselves or tell a story to their friends and family.
I'm sorry for any background noise. There's a lot of cleanup after the big storms in Auckland.
It's not coming through right now, so I think we're good. Okay. No.
It is so loud here. Like you said, the whole sense of, like, you'd hate to see, it slip away, but I think there's the other element of, you'd hate to see yourself go out there and feel overwhelmed by, like, how do I capture this? You know, like, I'm in it right now and I really want to capture it. And maybe I'm letting it overwhelm me and take away from the experience. So it's a difficult one because, you know, the word balance is, like, there's a lot of, connotations, or, like, a lot of weight to that word, but how do you even explain finding balance between experiencing what you're, you know, going through and capturing and filming the moment? Because, you know, it's a push-pull. You know, some moments feel too special, too unique, or too in that moment to, you know, want to be filmed for yourself to pull out a camera. But I think my biggest tip would be, and it's the approach I took on the PCT, and I feel like I was able to manage the balance the most probably out there in terms of experience and filming, which was just what theme or what element do you really want to capture? What is the kind of story you think you want to tell, and base your approach to filming around that, and don't let every other waking moment feel like it needs to be filmed, like it needs to be captured, because that's when it can take away, you know? With those key things you want to capture, you get them, and then you're like, cool, I'm just going to continue my day, continue allowing whatever happens to happen. And I think that approach is probably, the most ideal. And even just things that are really underrated are just voice memos or little snippets to camera where it's, you know, just your really raw, authentic emotions from where you are at that time. Yeah, but you have to figure it out as well. Like, you have to see what works best for you.
I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that. I think having the foresight ahead of time to maybe just pick up on a few cues or themes that could be the trip, right? And then just focusing your effort there does make a big difference, because I've done it multiple ways, not that it's ever been right either, but like when you're out there trying to capture everything, it's way overwhelming, it's way distracting, and sometimes by trying to capture everything, you capture nothing type of feeling,
Mm-hmm.
And the camera's never out exactly in the moment that you want it to be out. Like when something really happens in real time, like the camera's never going to be out, it seems like. So picking up on like a theme, I think is really interesting. It does take some foresight, but at the end of the day, it's the story that's going to pull people through, your experience. It's your underlying story there too. And so then you really can film for 5 or 10 minutes and check out for hours at a time and actually be present, right?
Yeah. And I think as well, like your whole experience informs the story. And if you're too busy being caught up in capturing things, you're not going to have those experiences that will shape the story in post. So yeah, you've got to allow yourself to have those moments of, real presence. Even if the story is told in hindsight, even if you don't capture those moments, you still have them. And that's when, recording voice memos or whatever can, encapsulate that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And hopefully we'll see some people take that to heart through this next year. And maybe they'll even share I'd love it for anyone listening to share your experiences, even inside some of our groups and whatnot. So, so how the heck did you end up on the PCT? You're from New Zealand. You come all the way over to the United States, hike this crazy trail. Sounded like you were getting gear shipped somewhere in the US. You're picking up that gear and then hitting the trail. I mean, it's just a massive endeavor, right? So where did the desire first come to go and hike the PCT?
The desire, the thing is, I did read wild. It's the most, basic answer. I did read wild like years and years ago, but before that, maybe when I was like 16. So I hiked it when I was 25, but I must have read the book when I was like 16. But I didn't think, when I read it, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do that. I read it and I was like, oh, this is a woman who needed a lot of healing and she chose this crazy thing. And I would never do that. Like, I don't think I'm in a bad way to go do that, is what I thought, It's like you really, needed to be, that's why I felt in a dark place to want to do something where you really remove yourself. And then I guess, I lived in the States for a year. And a girl whose room I was subleasing in Denver, she was hiking the Colorado Trail. And maybe that was like a little subtle seed that was planted. I didn't really understand what she was doing. I was like, oh, she's hiking in Colorado for 4 to 6 weeks or whatever. Cool, I've got a room in Denver. Like, I didn't really comprehend what she was doing. I didn't realize that was a parallel. And I guess, it just, I guess must have got to that point of being in a really dark, but not really. It was just a sense of like, okay, I'd had a lot of like life jolting moments where like not, I wasn't feeling fulfilled by my career. I'd had a relationship end, always classic, the heartbreaks, the heartbroken on the PCT. There are many. My mum had recently been diagnosed with cancer. And it was just these moments of like, okay, wow, like if I want to go do something, this is probably a good time where I need to make a clean cut transition. And some reason it came back. The idea came back. I think I'd been talking about it maybe with somebody, but kind of as just like a pipe dream. And I guess I just started looking into it of like, okay, what's something that is going to give me this sense of empowerment and feeling like I've accomplished something and, regaining a sense of self-confidence. And this somehow maybe fed into my algorithm somewhere. And the desire just grew. I didn't really think about how overwhelming it would be as, like you said, an international coming over, maybe because I'd spent some time in the US and I had friends there.
Right.
It seemed a little bit less daunting, but it was still like, okay, what the heck am I getting myself into? I do also credit, I don't know if you know Heaps or Wilderbound, Aisha. She's hiked the PCT 3 times now. And I remember when I started really looking into it, I was like, man, are there any women who have hiked this? Are there any people from New Zealand who have hiked this? And I found her page and she'd hiked it already, I think twice by then, I'm going to say. I think she'd hiked it in 16 and 18. I was like, oh, okay, she's done it. It gave me that little like boost of confidence that, a Kiwi could go over there and do it too.
Had you always been a hiker, or was this something that was like totally foreign to you? I guess I say hiker, but I should say backpacker, I guess. Were you consistently backpacking and doing that, or what was kind of your background leading into this?
I think my first multi-day hike was when I was 21, maybe. I was like, it must have been 2015. Anyway, I'd done I'd done day hikes as a kid, but just like bushwalks essentially, which are, they're around the corner in New Zealand. So very casual bushwalks. And maybe I'd done 5 multi-day hikes before doing the PCT. So I wasn't an avid backpacker or hiker. I didn't even know about the world of ultralight gear and just like how much people froth over gear. I just didn't.
You struck a chord already.
I didn't even comprehend that. I was like, okay, I've got like this old 65-liter Osprey pack. I guess I started getting a little bit more into it in my year in the US. But again, it was like maybe some overnighters and mainly just like day hikes. So yeah, I had this backpack and I was like, cool, I'll just take all this. Then I started looking into it and went down the rabbit hole of like, oh, this is a thing. And this is when it must have been like December 2018. So I did the trail in April 2019 started, but it must have been December 2018 where I started really looking into it. And that's when I discovered also just like the world of YouTube and thru hikers. And I was like, oh, this is a whole niche. That's when I found like Darwin and Jupiter and, like John Z and all of them and Dixie. You just kind of find that corner of the internet and you're like, oh, this is a whole world. And people have been following these people for years and years.
Right. Did you start the trail with adequate gear, or did you start with like that 65-liter pack?
I'm kind of all or nothing. So I went down the rabbit hole, saw some gear lists, and bought all the ultralight stuff. I just felt like I had to. I don't know why. Maybe in a sense it was like this feeling of this is the best, like the most prepared I can be by having the lightest gear and just reading about people's experiences having lighter stuff. I wasn't super, super hardcore with it, but I definitely wanted the lightest pack. I just wanted to make my life easier. I started with light stuff.
It's smart that you're humble enough to learn from these other people instead of go out and make the mistakes, right? And then be switching it on the trail and introducing more potential issues or stress on trail. So it's definitely smart. I'm sure you were very thankful for that once you got started in hiking these miles, right?
Yeah. It was nice. It was nice. It was a nice feeling. Being like, oh, okay, it's not so bad.
Yeah. So as you're getting started on the trail and going through this, what do you feel like was the hardest aspect of a thru hike?
The hardest aspect. Like
if you were to think of, go ahead.
Oh, no. Okay. Let's hear your prompt.
No, I was going to give you an out. I don't want to give you an out.
Okay.
No, I was going to say, like, if you think of like just the darkest day on the PCT and like the struggle of that? Like, what does that look like? Where does that come from? What's that experience like?
I think honestly, the hardest element, like I said, are pretty all or nothing. So in my mind, I was like, there's no way I'm not going to finish. So mindset was like very strong. I guess the hard element was a little bit worrying about ankle issues, maybe that could take me off trail. Logistics felt pretty all right because it's such a well-trafficked trail. I think the hardest element was actually social. It was the best and the hardest, right? Because you find that there's so many people and, you almost feel not indebted, but maybe in a way indebted to people. Because you connect very easily out there, right? But sometimes you're kind of like, okay, what do I want my journey to look like? And is the person I've just met contributing positively or kind of maybe taking away from it? And I like to make friends, but sometimes you do want time for yourself. And so, especially the early days, I felt a bit of maybe pressure. I mean, I think about my hardest day. It was a day involving, it's like a story I still haven't told, but it was like my Sierra day that I feel like I can only really truly tell it in writing because it was quite complicated. But it involved another person and it just exacerbated from there. But yeah.
Well, this is a very interesting vein of conversation because I'm not a thru hiker. There's a good chance I'll never be a thru hiker, right? I'm married. I have some kids.
Oh, come on now.
I just can't leave them, right? I'm too addicted to my kids, but I love section hiking and we went out and did a section hike on the AT this summer or this last year. And it was really interesting to get a taste of that because I mean, it's like the hiking family thing is such a real thing where people and a lot of them, they met on the trail. Like, it's not like they came out together, hiking together. Some did, some didn't though. And they're just like, by the time we were like, I think we were jumping onto the trail around mile 500 or no, crap. I've got like this picture in my mind of walking over the rocks that someone's like put in the trail of what mile it was at. But it was a milestone for a lot of these people, but they were like already so entrenched in these groups. And here we are, it's just two of us, and we're bouncing forward between groups because we were pushing pretty hard mileage. But it was like a real factor of, whether you want to hike at your pace and it's a different pace than them, whether you want to hike a different hike and it's not their hike, whether maybe you're a positive person and they might be looking, going through struggles and whatnot. But it's a very interesting conundrum in my mind, and we only were out there a few days, so I can't imagine how that gets bigger. And it seems like for you, right, you eventually found a group and continued to hike with them. So I would be interested just to hear your perspective on this idea of going through different groups of people or different little families on trail. It was a tramley. Is that what people love to shorten it to?
Yeah, the word.
It's the best word ever. But I'd love to hear your perspective on that because I think a lot of people that have never done a thru hike or section hiked have no idea what's happening there and what that's like.
Yeah. I mean, I think the group, like the people I did hike with, I mean, I don't want to go back on my words, but the people I ended with and like a couple who I started with who I'm still really good friends with, like Lucy and Irish and a bunch of others. But the group I finished with, it was cool because I think there was this sense of understanding, like everybody hikes their own pace, right? During the day, it's like, I might see you might see the others during the day, you might not. Everybody starts different times. But the main thing was like, okay, we're going to have an understanding of maybe where we'll all camp together. So there's no pressure to stay together during the day. So that's kind of what it looked like. But there was a sense of, I guess like real unity of just wanting to finish together and really enjoying each other's company. And I really was really stoked with how my hike ended. But yeah, I think there is always a bit of maybe a sense of pressure, because if you want to stick together, you've got to do the same miles, right? And so if you don't want to do those miles, or if you want to do more, if you want to do less, then there can, like, tension is created for sure. But it's like the kind of tension that by that point, because you have spent so much time together, it does feel very family, like sibling battles. It's just like, frustration.
Elena wants to do another 25-mile day, and I don't have it in me.
Yeah, it's just, but there's some kind of like magic in that group, and a really good dynamic, I felt. But yeah, how far in were you before you found this group that you finished your hike with? Because I would imagine if you guys are all starting at a similar time, eventually you get into a groove that the people hiking 20 miles a day are going to be in similar camp spots. They're going to kind of filter out versus the people that are only hiking 12 miles a day. You're going to slowly leave them behind. So it makes sense that you get into a groove the farther down the trail you would go, right? Yeah. It was kind of like we had a smaller group and they had this huge group. And I remember seeing them, and actually I heard them before I saw them. I was like, man, these guys are obnoxious. These guys are loud. I don't want anything to do with them. But then when I met a couple of them individually, I was like, oh, these people are great. I think it is always just intimidating seeing a big group. But yeah, no, I was with a smaller trail family. And then I think by that point, we'd kind of all decided we wanted to do different miles. It was about the halfway mark. And we came across this group at the same time. And then a couple of us kind of hooked on in a way. I was kind of like, I felt a little bit like, am I just joining somebody else? Like, do they want me around? But yeah, it turns out they did. So it was cool. So it was about halfway, and it felt cool in the sense almost like a refresh, a reset to the trail after the Sierra, after some harrowing experiences there. So it was nice to kind of have this whole new chapter to the trail.
Yeah. No, I find that super interesting for sure. So thinking back, I guess, on the experience as a whole, because I also want to get into your New Zealand hike. I think that sounds really interesting and is like a lot less popular trail. So I really would be interested to hear more about that. But sticking with the PCT for right now, were all of your expectations met? Or in other words, I guess, did you get what you thought you would get out of this trip?
I think they were exceeded, and I think it's because I didn't go in with a lot of expectation. I didn't watch PCT videos, so I still don't watch trail videos themselves really, unless someone has sent me something. I'm like, okay, this is cool, but I don't seek them out. So I didn't want spoilers. I'm a big advocate for that. Didn't want spoilers. So the kind of trail videos I watched beforehand were just preparation, like gear videos and that kind of thing. So I didn't have expectations for the trail experience, just what I needed to prepare. And that was my mindset, just get through. This is a physical challenge with some mental elements to it too. But this is a challenge, and I want to achieve this big goal. But I think what I didn't really comprehend was this whole sense of maybe feeling very liberated in who I thought I was, and which is actually, I don't really like that answer. It's very much like, oh, I'm free to be whoever I want. But it was more the sense of maybe like shedding a lot of past identity that I'd held on to for a long time. And often being in a different place, different environment allows you that space. But yeah, I guess I just didn't really think about that sense of confidence, that real innate feeling of, oh, I can do anything, if I just choose something and really dedicate myself to it, I can achieve that. So that was something that was exceeded, as well as the whole trail family experience. I didn't even think that was a possibility, to finish with like 11 people and form these. I did know that, the people and the friendships, relationships would be vital and would be, a big lasting impact, but maybe not to the extent that I felt it out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
like
anyone
a
who
long
sets
time
a goal,
ago, though, to be honest. Sorry.
we'll get to something more recent then.
It was like 4 years ago now.
Yeah. It's wild. It's crazy just to think back on time sometimes. Like you look, I don't know. That's a tangent, but I think anytime you set a goal that big and go and accomplish it, like you're going to have kind of that pivotal moment in your life where you don't see things quite the same, and you have more faith in yourself and your ability. And let's face it, like hiking 2,600 miles is probably harder than anything you've ever done in your life before that point. I don't know, but for many people, I'm going to assume that. And so it becomes this really pivotal aspect. But you also touched on something there that we like to refer to here. And it's basically just the concept of the healing outdoors, right? There's something about being in nature and disconnected that we think is completely vital to us, right? It's kind of the yin to the yang of technology now, and just more important than it's ever been. But I'd love to hear your perspective on do you have to do a thru hike to get some of those benefits like you were describing of maybe that's a deeper connection with yourself, or maybe it's shedding those stereotypes that the world puts on you, or expectations that somehow have landed on your shoulders, or whatever it is that maybe you experienced out there. Do you feel like that can be replicated on a shorter hike?
I think you know the answer to that. I think yes. I think for sure. I think I guess there is one like one difference, maybe more than that. I haven't really thought about the full answer, but I think you can get all those benefits just by being outside. There's that whole sense of connection, like you said, to this feeling of something bigger than yourself. And when you experience that with other people as well, there's just a really strong connection and bond can be formed, even on a 2-day, 3-day, 4-day hike, where it's just you and a couple of friends having these conversations that you otherwise wouldn't in an urban environment, right? There's something about being out there where you feel, like the weight off your shoulders. I can just talk about, whatever I'm feeling, and maybe being more vulnerable, be more open. Maybe thru hiking introduces that whole element of it's just a longer period of time. So I think what the difference there is, you live in that a lot longer. So that becomes, I guess, more of your identity. Like, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing every day, which also introduces the other challenge, right? When you have to return, when you go home and you're like, okay, I'm a thru hiker who lives out of a backpack, but I'm living in a house now. It's there's that shift back. But I think it gives you the opportunity to realize, oh, I can change. I can be a different version of myself and a different iteration and different chapters of my life. I'm not just this one thing. And I think that's the shift back that is healthy to come back to as well, of just understanding that, okay, that was me in that chapter, and maybe I'll do another thru hike someday. But
that's I guess that's kind of what my next question was going to be, is you've done a thru hike, you've had this transformative experience, but you want to go back and do more through hikes, right? Like that's on your radar for the future. So where does that come from, or like what are your expectations of like why you would do this whole experience another time versus like some of these other hikes that are a little bit more bite-sized that you've been doing more recently, or jumping back onto a 2,000-mile trail?
Why I would do another thru hike? Dopamine addiction. It's just feeding it.
You're addicted. That's what it is.
I think now the approach is different, right? The expectations are different because I believe, okay, I can do it. And maybe it's this other sense of challenge. I also think that I'm really drawn to wanting to tell stories, right? So that's the underlying, I guess, drive of a lot of it too, is that I've always wanted to tell stories, and telling stories in an outdoor space is kind of the ideal pair for me. And when I think about a trail, I think about the story as well. I'm wondering if I would ever do a thru hike without capturing it. And it'd be hard for me, I think, to justify, just because it is a lot of time. It's a lot of time.
I guess I'm kind of wondering in my own seat here, as far as just like, maybe there's some benefit to the differences in preparation and then getting on trail. And I guess what I mean by that is, obviously when you set out on a thru hike, you have to figure out a way to take everything that's going on in your life and put it on hold or pause it indefinitely, for 6 months or longer. And it's almost like a reset button in some ways, right? Like, whereas if I'm going on even a 5-day hike or a 10-day hike, let's say, I can just put things on pause way easier than when it's months, right? So I'm just trying to think through this myself and be like, how could I get, or how can you get that deeper level of benefit from that disconnect and from going outdoors? And I wonder if that could play into it, of just like maybe setting these big goals and having these big milestones, and then the way that you lead into them could say a lot.
The whole, setting yourself a challenge and heading out there and accomplishing it. Definitely, there is something to be said about that.
Do you think that most thru hikers are pretty goal oriented, or do you think it's like a mix? Because I would think they're massively goal oriented, but there's also a lot of people out there that just seem like they're just living every day, like almost the opposite of what you would think of goal oriented as being, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think specifically, or especially for the first thru, there's always going to be that goal oriented hike. But to have that experience, you kind of, like you said, live day to day without the sense of feeling overwhelmed by that goal. But I mean, it's hard to say. Maybe we could head out, do some hiker interviews, survey.
Yeah, and that's something that you do, right? You interview a lot of hikers on your trips.
I do enjoy talking to other people, to other hikers. So I always make that effort. I'll always make sure that people are keen or not.
That's awesome. So I want to pivot here for a second, if that's all right, and hear a little bit about this New Zealand trail that I'm not going to try to pronounce. I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce this trail first.
You can learn.
So how do you say the name of this trail?
Te Araroa. So it's a bit of a tongue roll on the R. But if I was really trying, the te is meant to be a lot softer as well, like te, almost like a D. But I'm still practicing my te reo pronunciation, which is te reo Māori, the language of the indigenous people of New Zealand. But yeah, Te Araroa is
that's the Maori. Is that what you said? Maori people?
Māori. Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha. Mm-hmm. So I can't even get that one right. But so I would just love to hear about what this trail is. You also documented this one on your YouTube channel for those of you that want to go experience this as well. But Tell us a little bit about this trail, why this trail, maybe what makes this trail unique.
Why this trail? Yeah, I guess it was interesting heading out in PCT where people were like, okay, have you done the New Zealand Trail? And I was like, no interest. When you grow up in a place and you're so familiar with it, it doesn't intrigue you as much. There's more familiarity, which makes it less exciting. But then I found myself, locked in a country where I couldn't leave and, feeling that call again. So it felt like the perfect timing for me to go do it. What makes it unique is that the two islands are very, very different experiences. It's a mixed bag, right? A lot of people just are not keen for the North Island because it's a lot more road walking. But there's still a lot less mountains. But for me, what really makes the North Island unique is how much you go through communities and you can chat to locals and walk along really beautiful beaches that don't feel beautiful after hours and hours. But, I think also it's like the approach that it is the thru hike, but maybe to approach the North Island more so as like a cultural pilgrimage, as a slow way of travel, with the option to do cool side trips. And then the South Island as maybe more of a traditional thru hike, but with a lot of huts, a lot of backcountry huts.
Is there a lot of, there's not a lot of public land in New Zealand, is there?
No. So it's like a lot of it is dock owned, local iwi owned. I guess I actually should know the proper percentages of that on Te Aroha, but
I'm not asking for that. I'm just general rule of thumb here.
Yeah. But so you are often paying for campsites and backcountry hut passes and that kind of thing. Just
how far is
I don't know what else to say.
Length of the trail?
It's 3,000 kilometers, so that's about 1,800 miles.
Oh, wow.
For all you Americans.
Yeah. I like how you just translated that without me asking, so I really converted that. So that's way bigger than I thought it was, actually. I mean, in my head, New Zealand's not big enough to have that much space, but I apparently am way off, so...
Have you been? You haven't been?
No, I have not. I'd love to. In fact, our merino wool that we work with is all coming out of New Zealand and headquartered out in New Zealand. And I was just meeting with them the other day. They were over here on a trip and got the wheels spinning a little bit of like, man, we definitely need to go visit their headquarters and
surely make a little doc out of it.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have you come film it so you can tell this phenomenal story.
Sure.
I mean, that's one thing that you're doing as well, right? Is you're actually have a video course, right, to teach people how to better capture film, right? So maybe tell us just a little bit about that.
That kind of came about, I think, because I was being asked a lot, how do you edit? How do you put together a story from all your travel videos? So I kind of just wanted to streamline the answers and make it easy for myself and put that together. It's less of maybe like a traditional filmmaking kind of course, but it's more so like, okay, you've captured a lot. You have a story you want to tell and share. This is the approach that I took to editing and putting it together. And maybe it can help you. But yeah, again, it feels pretty, all of it would still be relevant, but it's interesting because again, probably made that 4 years ago now.
Gotcha. Yeah, to you, it probably feels like basics maybe, but to other people, it's probably very transformative, I imagine, education to approach.
It's definitely entry level for sure.
Yeah. Okay. And you've got a background in communication. So, this is your whole life, right? It's just storytelling. I don't know if in communication, were you more on the writing side or what were you doing with that side of your life?
So my bachelor's degree was communications. There was a lot of essay writing to begin with, but then maybe year 2 and year 3, I was able to pick up a camera a lot more and jump into editing software as well, Premiere, After Effects. Learnt a lot there. So it was this very balanced theoretical, practical degree. In my final year, I was able to major in video production and direct my own like short documentary. And I knew that going into that course, that's what I wanted to focus on. It just felt really, I think, difficult to like tell yourself that it's okay to, go for that dream, because, when you're a kid growing up and you're doing kind of well academically, you think, okay, I have to go into a very traditional or like prestigious sounding career, and like filmmaker or video person doesn't sound as great, but I knew that that's what I was most passionate about. So yeah, I pursued that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'd encourage everyone to go look into this course if you're interested in recording your adventures out there. But jumping back to this New Zealand trail, Te Arara. I'm not even
You're getting there.
going to attempt this one. So you mentioned there's some road walking, there's some beach walking, but obviously there's also some very mountainous terrain in New Zealand. So take me through, I guess, just a little bit of your highlights, like your favorite section of trail. What does that look like? What are the challenges and the highlights of that?
Favorite section? I think I always say like the Nelson Lakes region. It's just, to me, like the New Zealand version of Goat Rocks Wilderness in Washington on the PCT. It's just incredible lakes and mountains, and in terms of beauty, I think probably objectively the most beautiful section, and that leads into the Richmond Ranges, which is also the most difficult section of the trail, so most challenging as well.
Like what kind of elevation climbing and descending are you seeing? Like,
I do not like measuring any of that. I never, okay. I never pay attention to those stats. It's a lot of up, and a lot of down, very, very steep. That's the thing. We don't have switchbacks in New Zealand. So it's a lot of it's why also Te Araroa can take a bit longer, because you can't cover the miles you can on the PCT. Kilometers. You cannot cover those kilometers. I feel like Te Araroa kilometer is equivalent to a PCT mile. So 1 kilometer, 1.6 kilometers to a mile. So it's tough trail. You wouldn't see anything that's steep on the PCT. People would just be mad. They would be. And people
they'd be mad.
It's a stereotype. It's actually an unfortunate stereotype for a lot of US hikers. Sorry, guys. That a lot of US hikers come over here and get quite frustrated with the trail, because it's quite rough going. And I mean, in New Zealand, people call it tramping. They don't call it hiking. Majority. I actually don't know, but I've seen comments actually on videos that I've done on Te Araroa where I've called it hiking, and Kiwis are like, it's tramping, not hiking. Like, it's the same thing. But the word, I think, provides this other connotation of like tramping. You're like going through the bush, and maybe that is more accurate.
Is it a lot of like foliage growing in, or is it
like
actual trail underneath is also...
both, everything in both, and just you don't know what you're going to get every day. Nothing like PCT maintenance.
They get pretty spoiled. I mean, when I walked on the AT, I was like, "This is real life. Like, this is ridiculously good trail." Like, I just couldn't really fathom it. I mean, I grew up out here in the West, and I grew up. Not always on trail, I guess you could say, doing more hunting and different things. And so it's a luxury to have nice trail, and I couldn't believe how good the trail was on the AT. So, but this sounds like kind of next level. So what, what kind of kilometers, like how long did it take you to do this 1,800 miles, 3,000 kilometers? Make sure to get that in there.
Took me 4 months. So PCT took me 4.5. Te Aroha took me 4. I was a lot more chill about it. I didn't have an end date. I had 3 weddings I had to get to while I was on the trail. So I was popping in and out, actually only 2 while I was on there. I took 4 to 8.
Is anyone else hiking out there with you? Like how many people are doing this hike? I met a couple
other people. There weren't many that year. At all.
So is that a totally different experience?
Whatever you see in the videos is pretty much every person I met. Essentially. Completely different experience. Very isolated, very peaceful.
So which one did you prefer, I guess? The more isolated New Zealand hike or like a PCT scenario?
I mean, when I say more isolated, like I still had a little trail family. Me and my 5 younger brothers that I met along the way. And was it 5? Yeah, I don't want to discount anyone. Yeah, there were 5 of us, or 6 of us together. And so I still had a little trail family, and I ended with 2 of the guys that I'd met pretty early on. Actually, one of them I'd met day 1, but we kind of, we're together, and then I would head off and then would rejoin. So I wasn't isolated, but it was just quiet. I think I missed the international diversity just because people couldn't get into the country. But I think because they were completely different hikes, it was good to have a real difference. And it was nice I just felt way less pressure on Te Aroha. But, PCT is my first love, so it's hard to compare. I'd already had expectations of what my second thru would be like, as much as I was, disregarding them. You have that on your shoulders a bit. But yeah, very, very different. But PCT is my first love.
Did you end up changing out any pieces of gear for these different trails, or
I think I got a warmer sleeping bag for the South Island. I was trying to bring my stove for the South Island, but I misplaced it. So I was cold soaking the whole way, which was fun. And never again. Let's see. It was just a sleeping bag I swapped out because it was real hot, really, really hot. For the North Island, you don't need something like a down. Or maybe you can have just a real lightweight quilt. And also I had the luxury of being able to swap out gear. PCT, I didn't do so much. I could literally ship it home, which I was like, oh, this is what people are doing on the PCT. This is lush.
This is nice. You just switch gear out. Mm-hmm. So climbing up these crazy mountains and in this kind of terrain, do you feel like you finally mastered the trekking poles?
Look, I feel like I mastered them by the end of the PCT. I was down pat.
So it was just the beginning, right? So maybe give a little backstory here on your trail name.
Look, I just didn't know how to use my trekking poles, just tip-tapping them on the ground. To me, actually, I was just building a lot of leg strength for the Sierra. It was actually my tactic. Yeah. I learned how to use them in the end, I think.
I'm sure you'd have to. And it is always funny, though. So I get the opportunity to take quite a few new people out, and it seems like every time I offer them trekking poles and they're like, no, I don't need trekking poles. And you're going along, and then pretty soon, maybe they start struggling or something. You're like, try my trekking poles for a minute, and then they get addicted to it. And then I didn't have trekking poles. So it got to the point where I would leave spare and extra trekking poles in my vehicle. And even if they didn't want them at first, sometimes I'd just pack them because I knew by the end they would. But it is always fun to watch the first couple of hours with people getting used to trekking poles that have never had them.
Mm-hmm. Like a baby deer.
That's a great analogy, actually. Okay, so is there anything, I guess, about that New Zealand trail that we didn't cover that you think is really interesting or
it's all in my videos.
Unique.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Just watch the videos. So
I mean, yeah, it's hard to explain. Like it's all, yeah, it's rough. It's raw. It's you get a real, I think, taste of New Zealand, and it gives you opportunity to, I guess, converse and have chats with locals and maybe get to know more of the culture as well as the terrain. And I'd recommend. And I live very near the trail in Auckland now, so I've been stalking hikers and chasing after them, and it's been great. I love it.
Just running them down.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you up to now? So obviously you've been continuing to run your YouTube channel. It looks like you're doing some guiding or some group trips.
Yeah. Sorry, I said yeah before you finish your question.
We have a tiny bit of delay here, but
yeah. So what I'm up to now, everything and all the things. So right now, I've kind of been trying to reassess my YouTube channel because it's pretty hard to do a thru hike and film it all and then edit it into videos. It's a long process, and it can take me 2 weeks to edit one. Like I spend a lot.
I was not going to say anything, but did you end up putting, like, you got rid of maybe some expectations on the PCT, and then you created this YouTube channel that maybe is putting expectations back on you to go hiking and film it?
For sure. And
at least it's what you love doing, right? But
yeah, I love it, but it's not my entire identity, and I think that's why it can be difficult, as any other creator online would experience, is that you don't want to put yourself in a box because you're a multifaceted human being, right? And so, I've been trying to, I guess, take a little step back and reassess, what do I want this channel to be? Because there's a way to make money. There's a way to build an audience. And a lot of that is through consistent content. But with consistent content, obviously it requires smaller time periods. And, I guess I've just been reassessing what I want to put online a bit. So YouTube channel is still there. It's been a little bit stagnant for a bit. Might continue to be, but we'll see. What I'm up to. So right now I'm actually working on, I guess I wanted to focus a bit more on my filmmaking side. So right now I'm editing somebody's feature documentary. I took on this project. I am living in Auckland. I'm also developing, I guess my time at the moment is divided in 3 ways. Editing this person's film. I'm developing my own feature documentary. So that's something that's taking up a lot of time.
Any sneak peeks on that, like topic or anything?
Any sneak peeks?
What's the documentary about of yours?
Okay. I'm heading to a pitching event in Melbourne in early March, which will be very exciting with a trailer and everything. I don't know if I should say. Okay, I will. The film was called. The film will be called "I Thought Jesus Was Korean." It's kind of based. I think I want to incorporate some elements of thru hiking, but it's also stems from my life, my background, my upbringing, which is a whole other story, I guess. Which is why I'm making a film about it. And that is something I'm working on, and watch the space, I guess. The other thing that I'm working on is, or will be working on, is that in early April, I'm heading out on the Hayjuk Trail. So I will be out your ways in Utah. So I'm flying to the US end of March, and I'll be out there for 2 months, or just shy of 2 months, I think maybe 7 to 8 weeks, hiking with 3 others, and we are going to be filming and documenting, capturing the whole journey, and that is going to be a huge undertaking. I think I haven't fully comprehended either.
Yeah,
so
that's
great for that.
Super interesting. I'm trying to just see exactly how close you get to us on that trail. That's pretty exciting though. So that's in April, you said, right?
Yeah. We pushed back the start date a little bit just because dates and timings, and it kind of works out because the high snow year, but we shall see. I don't have a lot of multi-day experience out there, quite remote. So yeah,
we might. Are the people you're hiking with locals, or are they?
So I'm hiking with, I don't know if you know Zelzen, who has Triple Crowned. She's from Mexico, and she lives actually in Utah now. Near Moab, I think. Mm-hmm. And I'll be hiking with a guy called Andy Laub, who hiked the PCT in 2011, I think, and he made a film called As It Happens, which is also on YouTube. And I'm hiking with another guy called Peter. I'm not going to try pronounce his last name. He's from Austria. He also made a PCT film. He hiked in 2018, maybe 2016. He did it. So I guess the three of us are going to be, the main film crew. And we're just going to go on this journey together. The two of them, Peter and Andy, they went and hiked the Pacific Northwest Trail in 2019 and made a series about it, and they're releasing it on the YouTube channel Heyo. And so it's kind of like season 2 in a way.
Yeah.
On the Hey Juke.
That sounds super exciting. If you need any support for that, or any anything we can provide, let us know. We're, like I say, it's just looking at that. I mean, are you going to start in Zion, or are you going to end in Zion, or in that side?
Starting out of Moab.
Moab. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll pick you up at the end of the trail.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, let's get a ride out to Vegas to finish off, eh?
Yep. Well, that's the closest airport. We have to drive to Vegas
which is
to fly
wild.
out most of the time.
That's insane. Yeah, I can't imagine coming off a thru hike and then just going to Las Vegas straight away. It's just
yeah. When we were just meeting a supplier down there, they flew into Vegas because they said it's literally the closest place. They're like, so do you guys like come down here all the time and hang out? Because it's close. And it's like, no, I spend like this much time in Vegas. Like I go straight to the airport and straight out of there. But it can be a good time,
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. The only time I was near Vegas, I took the other way and went through Area 51 instead, and that was cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. That's I'm a little jealous. That trail will be a lot of fun, and you're going to see some country that people have never seen. Yeah. That could be fun for sure. Keep us in the loop, like when you're starting and whatnot, and who knows?
Yeah,
maybe we can come out,
follow up.
Yep, Yep. Bring some trail magic or something, and hike for a few miles. So be a lot of fun. Okay. Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I know I was a little bit everywhere, but I feel like a lot of times. You get like recaps of people's trips, but you've already masterfully recapped your trips, I feel like. And so I was trying to dig around just a little bit, but I appreciate you being a sport on that. But is there anything else that you feel like I missed that, I don't know, that describes you and what you're up to?
I don't think so. I think I think that's kind of a lot of what I've been up to. I am about to do my trail half in like 2 weeks, which I'm pretty excited about. I haven't been able to run for a couple of years because of my ankle issues, and this will be the first time in a while. So that's something I'm stoked about, that I've been able to actually train for a run again, which is good physical prep for Moab as well. Probably should have entered a 50, but that's okay. Taking it smaller to begin with. But no, yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Did you run before? Did you run prior to the PCT and just getting into these longer distance hikes?
In 2018, so the year before, I ran a couple half marathons, maybe 3 or 4, and I felt like that was probably like my peak fitness, and then just wrecked my body. Ibuprofen is not a good form of rehabilitation. So just know that, kiddos. So that's something I'm stoked by. But yeah, it's been kind of interesting and fun taking a little step back from, I guess, maybe any expectations I'd placed on myself in the social media space to kind of maybe more so pursue a type of filmmaking that takes a bit longer to marinate and write and develop. And the documentary that I'm working on, I'm pretty excited by it. It's, for me, it's been like my lifetime in the making. So it's very different. Very different. But because I'm behind the camera, it's also very much indicative and representative of me too. And thru-hiking is a huge part of my identity, or just like a part, is an aspect of who I am. So I do want to sneak that in some way. Actually, not sneak it. I want it to be. I really want to head out on trails and film people. But I'm not sure where the story's going to really go. But
so people can follow that. I would imagine you're at least going to post something. Instagram, I'd imagine you're going to share some of that content when that is available to watch, right?
Yeah. At the moment, I'm unsure if I'll put anything on YouTube at this point, and because I'm still in development and trying to get some money. It's just this whole process, I guess. And yeah, who knows where it goes? But I think even by me saying it out loud, which is quite scary, actually, just putting it out into the universe a little bit more of like, okay, this is happening. This is going to be made.
Going to make it happen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Going back, so I didn't find running until about 2 years ago. I was like the anti-runner, and when I started running is really when I started to get in way better shape for hiking, right? And I think you've depicted your ankles as glass ankles or something like that in the past, right? So really quick, just have you found anything that's been helpful to you to rehabilitate your ankles? Like whether that's exercise or whether that's, anything related to that besides ibuprofen.
Ibuprofen and KT tape and Pokemon gummies. Rehabilitation, honestly, it clicks. It's still, I just clicked it now. It clicks when I run. So it always clicks. And so people always think this shoelace is hitting my shoe. And then I'll say, no, that's my ankle.
It's that loud. Clicking. People around you can hear this.
It's very loud. And so once you hear it, you can't unhear it. It's kind of, so I've run with my brother before and he doesn't like it because he can just hear my clicking ankle all the time. That's why I wear headphones. No, so I think for rehabilitation, it honestly has been like, it's the worst. It's patience, like taking different forms of exercise and doing all the stretches and those things. But I think what I've realized as well is just being fitter has helped my ankle as well. Just with your body being maybe more in tune, like attuned to what it's carrying or whatever. And as well as I recently got a steroid shot in the ankle, and that has actually helped a lot. So steroid shot, everybody. Get on the roid.
You're going to switch out ibuprofen for the steroid shot. They'll give you those on
Yeah.
take on the trail, right? Get some.
Might take another booster before Utah, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's pretty rough terrain out here a lot of times, so might be
Oh
advised.
God. Okay, I will.
You'll love it though. It's going to be unlike anything else. I mean, I feel like I've seen a lot of terrain. There's still a world full of terrain I'd love to see, but Utah and this area is definitely pretty dang unique. So, and you're going right through the heart of it. So it's going to be awesome.
Stoked. I am stoked.
Okay. So, for those of you that are wanting to go find your YouTube channel, it's just under your name, Elina Osborne. It's fantastic. You have a video that's done extremely well that you're most well known for, titled, I think it's The People, if I'm not mistaken.
It is The People, yeah.
It is The People. I encourage everyone to go watch that one at least and then get lost in the rest of your content. You have an Instagram handle that you can go follow as well. And all of that can be found also through your website, which is...
Also my name.
Also your name.
Yeah.
Love it.
Pretty standard.
Okay. Pretty standard. Well, that's just the norm now, right? It's so much more clear when you can just use your name for everything. And I think that's some of the beauty of social media. But okay, well, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I thought this was super interesting. It's put some additional, or at least one additional trail for me to go and look at and explore. We didn't talk at all about your most recent Japan hike, but that's also a very interesting trail, which we also have suppliers in Japan. So maybe I've got another reason to go hiking over there now. But yeah, really, really appreciate your time today. Make sure everyone goes and follows Elina, and we'll catch you guys on a future episode.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks again for your time, Elina, spent with us here on the Live Ultralight podcast. As a reminder, if you've not yet subscribed, make sure you hit subscribe. We'll have more and more guests and more great content coming. If you've not left us a review yet, please go and do so. It helps us get found and inspire more people to get out into nature. And last, if you do have any questions, we can be found on YouTube. So you can drop comments on our YouTube channel for the Live Ultralight podcast, or you can email us directly at liveultralightpodcast@gmail.com. And that will eventually get forwarded on to me to then answer on the air. So I'm sure we'll put together another Q&A episode here in the near future. So feel free to let us know what kind of content or what kind of questions you have, what kind of content you'd like us to record, as well as just other questions that you have, and we'll answer those here live on the podcast. We really appreciate you guys' support, and hope that this was an inspiring episode to you. Again, make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you guys on a future episode.